I am going to teach you how to play Holy, Holy, Holy on the octave mandolin. This arrangement was written specifically for the octave mandolin, and today we're just going to walk through it step by step, note by note, chord by chord. This might be a little bit of a longer video, but I hope that you find it helpful. I hope that by the end of this you are able to play this beautiful arrangement. If you have not already downloaded the sheet music, then I suggest that you do that. I will put the link in the description below. That'll take you to my website where you can purchase the arrangement, and that's just going to make things so much easier, and that way you can follow along with me as we go through this arrangement together. I do just want to preface this by saying that this arrangement is more for intermediate to advanced octave mandolin players. I have plans in the future to make many more arrangements for all skill levels of the octave mandolin, and I do have a beginner arrangement of Holy, Holy, Holy on the octave mandolin as well. You can look that up on my YouTube channel. I'll also link that below. I have videos for both the advanced version, the advanced arrangement, which is what I'm going to be going through in today's video, and then I will also link the beginner version of this arrangement. So go check that out if you're interested, but this is for the advanced, intermediate to advanced mandolin players because we've got kind of big stretches in the left hand. We're playing melody as well as chords at the same time, so we've got a lot going on. Whenever I am beginning to learn something new, obviously before I even start trying to play it, you want to look at what key is it in, what time signature is it in, what is the roadmap of the tune. And so if we look at the sheet music, and I have the sheet music over here, so that's why I'm looking off the screen, but we have the key of G major. We are in the time signature of 4/4, and basically if we break this down, we have an intro, kind of interlude and intro section, and that section is 4 bars, and those 4 bars are going to repeat throughout this arrangement. So we have the intro, then we have verse 1, and then we go back after verse 1 and we play that little interlude again. It's the exact same as the intro, and then we go into verse 2. Now verse 2 is obviously the same melody as verse 1. Verse 1 and verse 2, they're the same melody, but verse 2 just has a little bit more variation on the melody. It does a little bit more advanced things, just embellishes the melody a little bit more, and then we end by going back into that little interlude, that little 4-bar phrase that repeats itself throughout this arrangement, and that gets us to the very end. So let's start off by learning that very first 4-bar interlude. We start out with a G, a D, and a G. Okay? It's pretty straightforward. What I'm gonna do here, next we have a D. And because I'm already using my 3rd finger for the G, 3rd finger. For the D on the A string, I'm going to use my 4th finger here. That way I can keep my 3rd finger down, okay? So that's the fingering that I'm using right here, so that I can keep the sustain of the melody going. 4th finger. And then we've got this fun little melody here where we have, so that whole measure. And as you can see, I keep my 4th finger down that whole time. So the last 4 notes of that measure, I play 4th finger, and then I reach, 2nd finger, 1st finger, back to that 4th finger. So we can keep that D note down the whole entire time. Okay, moving on, we start the next measure, very similar to how we started the first measure. Pretty straightforward again. And then we have this fun little 6 interval, and so what I'm gonna do for that, I'm gonna slide up. So I'm gonna use my first finger and my third finger to slide up to play that. And then I am hitting my open D string with that. And then we're gonna slide down 2 more frets. My third finger and first finger, they slide down 2 frets, but they keep the spacing is the same. And we're gonna add our second finger here on that F sharp. So for that very last chord in the second measure, okay? So that this whole second measure sounds like this. All right, and now actually the third measure, I think, yeah, the third measure is the exact same as the first measure. So we already know that. 4, 2, 1, 4. And then actually, since we've kept our third and fourth fingers down, the very beginning chord of the fourth measure is just those 3 notes. Open G string, G on the D string with our third finger, and then D on the A string with our fourth finger. And then we walk down. And then we have a D major chord. And here you can do whatever fingering works best for you. I typically go for my fourth finger on the 7th fret on that D, and then my first finger on the F sharp. So that's trying to get it where you can see it. That's typically what I do for that. But if you have big enough hands and you can reach third finger to that 7th fret on the G string and play that, then that's great. You can totally do that. Just for me, it's a little bit of a jump, so I typically use fourth finger and first finger for that. Okay, so now let's play that. I'm gonna play that whole intro, those first 4 bars, so you can hear them, and I'll count us off. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yay! Okay, so that is the intro. Now we are going to get into the verse. So if you know the melody to this song, then that's the melody that we're going to be following. If you don't know the melody to this song, then I highly recommend that you go listen to this song. I'm sure you could look up, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of different versions of this hymn. It's a really beautiful hymn. The lyrics are beautiful, but it's always super helpful, especially when learning an instrumental arrangement of a song, that you know the melody, because that melody is still going to be prevalent in the instrumental arrangement, and that's what we're building off of. And so it's super helpful if you know that, if you can sing it. And again, this hymn is something that is sung. And so this melody, the holy, 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 that's basically what we are outlining on the mandolin. We're just throwing in some extra notes and some extra chords with that melody. So we're going to start off, and we're outlining that G major chord. All of the notes in this 5th measure are all in the G major chord. So we have in this G, this high G, 5th fret on the D string, that's our melody note. We always want to know what the melody note is, because we want to make the melody note louder than all of the other notes that we're playing, because we want our audience to be able to hear, oh, that's holy, holy, holy. I know that song. That's the melody that I'm hearing, because otherwise it's just going to sound like a bunch of chords, and that's not what we want. We want there to be a melody line that they can follow as we're playing this song. So this high G is our melody. have G chord again, and here this B note is our melody. So we're gonna try to make that louder. And here we've got a D7 chord. So I'm gonna do second finger, first finger, third finger. And again, here we have the very top note is our melody. And then we have another G chord. Again, the melody is still that top note. And then we continue, and these last two notes of the 6th measure move us into the 7th measure. And we want that to land on that C chord right at the beginning of measure 7. So we have the last two notes of measure 6 leading into the C chord. For the C chord, I'm gonna do third finger on the very bottom note, then fourth finger, next note, and then first finger. So that's what I'm doing for that. Again, where is our melody? Our melody is on the very top note. That's our melody. We're back to our G chord after that. Again, open third finger, fourth finger. Melody's still on top. Okay, now we are in measure 9, and this is where the melody switches up a little bit, and the melody is no longer on the top. The melody is now right in the middle of our chord. So we have F sharp, and I'm gonna play that with my first finger. So F sharp, and then we have D, that's our melody note. I'm playing that with my second finger, and then A on top, playing that with my third finger. But this D is actually our melody note, which is a little bit confusing, but here, this is a small move, so we're moving up to a G chord. So second finger stays right where it's at. First finger on the F sharp is gonna move up 1 fret to the G, and our fourth finger is gonna come up here on the 7th fret, or our B note on our E string. And then we're right back to that other chord. So really that transition is really small. So we're here, move up, back. I'll do that one more time. So again, this is measure 9. And then we move down in measure 10 to an E minor chord. So I'm gonna bar the first 2 frets with my first finger. So I'm barring the D string and the A string, and then got my second finger on top. To a D chord. Okay, so that's measure 10, and then we have another, kind of the bottom half of a D chord, D, and then we have an A chord. So I'm gonna bar the lowest 2 strings, our G string and our D string. Okay. Slide up my fourth finger here. So, and then in measure 12, we have this sort of 8th note arpeggio thing leading us back into the holy, holy, into that part. It's a bad key for me to sing in it, but anyway, so yeah, measure 12. And fingering there, I'm gonna do open, third finger, and then open, third finger, open, second finger, first finger, fourth finger. So that's what I would do right there. Okay, So I'm gonna play all of that together. I'm gonna play starting from measure 5 all the way to measure 12 where we just left off. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I just realized as I was playing through that let's go back to measure 7, that C chord. I realized that there are actually 2 different ways that I play that. There are 2 different ways that you can play it, and it's totally up to you with what feels best to your hand. But sometimes I will do, if we go on the very last note of measure 6, that B, I'll do 2nd finger to 3rd finger, 4th finger, and 1st finger for that C chord. And I think that's what I showed you guys when we were going through this first section. But sometimes I will also do 1st finger on the B, and then 2nd finger, 3rd finger, 1st finger on the C chord. So it's just the difference of doing 3rd and 4th finger or 2nd and 3rd finger. Either one works. It really doesn't matter what you choose to do, but that's 2 different options, and you can just decide what works best for your hand. And I also forgot to mention that in measure 9, the melody is that middle note of the chord, but in measure 10, the melody goes right back up to that top note that we were playing. And then the melody continues on the top note from there. And then measure 12 is just sort of an arpeggio leading to the downbeat of measure 13. There's not really a melody within that. Okay, and now we get to measure 13. And measure 13 starts us off again with the main melody, the holy, holy, holy. So that's the same as it was in measure 5. So we can play that. Again, this continues the same. Now here, we have a little bit of a variation, still very, very similar to before, except we've got this 16th note run in here. And I just finger that 1, 2, open, 1, 2, and then 4. And then we are back into our C chord, just like before. And right there we have a little slur over the G and the F sharp. This is in measure 15. You can see that little, looks like a little smiley face over 2 of the notes. And that means that it's a slide. So we hit the pick on the top note, and then we slide down for the next note. So I'm not actually hitting that 2nd note with my pick. And so that's what that little symbol smiley face means. It means that the 2 notes are connected, but we just hit the 1st note with our pick. So that measure 15, slide. We're back to our G chord. Now we've got, again, just a little variation, a little 16th note run in between, but this is very similar to what we played before. Back to that G chord. Here's where it changes. So now we have a D chord, which I'm fingering 1st finger, 3rd finger on the F sharp, and then 4th finger on the D. And then this leads to our E minor, same as before. Then we we've got G, and then to G7. So this is my G. Open, third finger, fourth finger. And now we're gonna change this third finger to a first finger on our D string. That gives us our G7. And then we're back to our C chord, just like before, this fingering. Another G7. So I'm playing O, open, second finger, first finger. And then I'm gonna use my third finger for this G on top. Okay, and then we have this nice little sixth walk down. And here the melody is still on top. And so we have, and then for, and this is in measure 19. So we have, and then I shift up the neck. So I'm gonna play my first finger and my third finger. And then we have open. And then I'm gonna shift back down to my third finger for that G, at the very end of measure 19. So all of measure 19, shift up, open, shift down. Okay, so that is that whole second section of the first verse. So let's play measure 13 through measure 19. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Okay, so that is now the intro and the first verse. And now we go back to that little interlude, which is the exact same as the intro, which you already know that now. So it's the exact same as it was before. And now we head into the second verse. And like I said before, the second verse, same melody line as the first verse, but we want to make it interesting, right? We don't want it to be just exactly the same as the first verse. We want to make it interesting so that the audience wants to continue listening. And so we have a couple little different variations, and we'll get into those. But we start off the exact same as we started our first verse. So G, and again, our melody's on top. Here, this is one of those little variations, those added notes within the melody. So we have our G chord, and then we have this melody. Okay, so I'll play that measure again. This is measure 25. G chord, and then I'm gonna do first finger, and then first finger again, and then down to that B with my second finger. So I'm playing the G chord, 1, 1, 2. Then we're into our C chord and measure 26. Now this part is really fun because we have we have intervals of sixths. I can't say that. A multiple of a sixth interval. Anyway, we have those moving down. So we're going to shift up to here. And I like to use my second finger on the bottom and my third finger on top for these two notes. And then, as you can see, we have another one of those smiley faces connecting these two notes. And so what that means is we play the first one with our pick, and then we slide down to the second note. So I'm going to play second and third finger here, and then I'm going to slide down to here. So now I'm going to play first finger and third finger. So we go here, here, to there. So that's what that is. And then we keep going. So now I'm going to slide this down 2 frets exactly. 2 frets for the next one. And then the very last one is second finger and first finger. So all of that together sounds like just like that. It's a fun little added phrase within the melody. And then we're back to our G chord. This is in measure 27. The numbers are so small. This is in measure 27. And here we have another 16th note embellishment in the melody. So again, another smiley face. So I'm gonna play second finger and then fourth finger. Moving down the 16th note, so that measure. So that's that part. And then we're here. And then, oh, actually we don't play our open G string. My bad. And then we have another smiley face, so again, we're gonna hit the first note, so we're gonna hit the B with our pick, and then we're gonna hammer on. This is what we call a hammer on, which means that we're not hitting the second note with our pick, but we are connecting the two. So we hit the first note with our pick, and then we do our next note. And you can still hear it, surprisingly, even without the pick. That's kind of cool. So, okay, and now we are into measure 28, which is the same chord, actually, that we've had previously. So I'm using this, first finger, second finger, third finger. So we have here, same as before, down to our E minor. Here we have another little embellishment. So we hammered that on as well. So this is measure 29. Hammer on, so second finger, fourth finger without using the pick. So, okay, and then D. And then we are back into measure 30. So here we are, we have our D chord, same as before actually, and then our A chord. So again, for my A chord, I'm barring the G string and the D string, and I'm using my fourth finger on the fourth fret of the A string, and then open E, and then I'm sliding my fourth finger up for that D. And then we have a little interlude leading to the downbeat of measure 32. So here we are. Another one of those smiley faces. Okay, so let's play all of that together. So this first part of the second verse, again, it's very similar to the other verses, except we have little embellishments here and there. And so because it is similar, we want to really highlight those embellishments and make those noticeable because they're different. There's something new. There's something interesting. So as you're playing through this, you want to think about, okay, what is the same and then what's different, and how can I highlight the things that are a little bit different so that we keep the momentum moving forward and we keep it interesting. This is from measure 24 to measure 31. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now we are moving into the final part of this arrangement, and this section actually might be one of my very favorite parts of this whole arrangement. So this is starting in measure 32, and we are going off of the same melody as before, but here we start playing it an octave higher than we have. So we have our full G chord, and the melody note is the very top note, beginning of measure 32. Right, full G chord. We're gonna go up an inversion. So for that, I'm doing first finger, second finger, fourth finger. Okay, and then in measure 33, we get to our D7 chord, but again, it's an octave higher than it has been in the past. So here, I'm gonna do second finger on the D string, and then first finger, and then third finger on top. So we have this formation, this shape, second finger's on bottom, first finger in the middle, third finger on top. That's our D7 chord. And then here we have third finger, fourth finger, third finger. And then we're back to our G in the second half of measure 33. So we're back to these sixth as we've played before. So now we have this sixth. So I'm shifting back down to first finger on the 5th fret on the A string, and then third finger, 7th fret on the E string. And we shift that down, shift down, and then G, or B on the bottom, and then G. Back to our standard C chord that we've pretty much played every single C in this arrangement. So measures 32, 33 are really fun, definitely something very different. So again, we want to try to highlight that, emphasize that, because we go up an octave and it's pretty fun. Okay, so back to measure 34, we've got our C chord. Same, we have the same sixth walk downs as we had before. Exactly the same as before. Back to our G chord in measure 35. Okay, and here is where it gets fun again because we're going up another octave. So beginning of measure 5, we have our G chord. We're gonna walk up. So I like to do second finger on the G, and then second finger again on the A. And then we have this same chord. So we have first finger on the bottom, second finger, fourth finger. And then we have to go up one more chord. So we're here, and then the last chord, the very last notes of measure 35 is a D chord. So we're here, and I'm gonna move up to this formation here. So I'll show you what that is. So we have our first finger on the D string on the bottom, third finger, fourth finger on top. Okay, So all of measure 35 is second finger, slide up, chord, next chord. Okay, and now we get to this really high, pretty E minor chord. There we go. Took me a second to find it. And that's okay. Sometimes you might have to play around with trying to figure out exactly where these notes are, because sometimes, you know, like this high E minor chord, it's really hard to find, okay, we've got this really high note, and then we've got another note and another note, and it's okay if you have to move around a little bit. But I will give you a hint, actually. On the octave mandolin, we do have chord shapes. And so if we move back down here to this shape, our E minor chord, just how we've played it before in first position, we had this shape. So we have a bar, right? So 2 notes, and then a note that's 1 fret above those other 2 notes on the highest string. That's our shape. So we're actually using the exact same shape all the way up the neck. So that's kind of a little trick if you're not sure exactly where it is. You can play around with it, but this is the exact same shape. Like I can just, like this, and we move it up all the way to there, but it's the exact same thing. It's our high E minor chord. So, except this time, instead of barring it, I'm gonna play first finger, second finger, third finger, just because that's easier for me than trying to bar it. You can totally bar it if you would like to. We have E minor, and then we come back down to a G chord. And so here is that fingering. So we've got first finger, third finger, first finger, second finger, third finger for that fingering. And then we have a G7 at the very end of measure 36. And for that, I'm going to switch where my first and where my second fingers are. So my second finger is going to go right where my first finger was, and my first finger is going to go right under my second finger in the middle on the A string on that F note. So we get this as our G7 chord. So we go from here to here. Okay, so I'll finger that. So from here to there. Okay, now we are into measure 37, almost to the end, guys, almost to the end. You've almost made it. You're gonna feel so accomplished once you have finished this arrangement. So now we are into our C chord, and that's gonna be here. Okay, so first finger, second finger, fourth finger. Might hear my dogs barking in the background. Okay, first finger, second finger, fourth finger. All the way up here. And again, since we're so high up on the neck, if you're having trouble remembering where you're at or trying to figure out what note it is, one, you can just match it with mine and memorize what fret you're on. But also what helps me is we have these double dots right here. Those double dots are on our 12th fret, and the 12th fret is the exact same note as your open string. So, you know, G string, 12th fret, the double dots on our G string is another G. D string, 12th fret, double dot, another D, A, E. So that really helps when we're this high up, because we know we have a C chord. So if we know that on our D string, that this all the way up here is another D on the double dots, C is 1 note below D. So we move down 2 frets, and that's where our C is. So that's always super helpful for me. So that's our C chord. And then we have another G7. Now this G7 is a little bit of a stretch. It's kind of a weird fingering pattern. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do first finger on the D string, fourth finger for the F, and then third finger on top for that chord. So just like this. And then we have that same note in the chord. This is the very last two notes of measure 37, B, and then I like to reach my fourth finger for that D. So, and then we have those sixth, I cannot, those six keep being in all of this arrangement. I can't say it, but this is the beginning of measure 38. We have, again, just walking these down like we have in the past. I like to use second finger and third finger, and then first and third, first and third. And here we get to add our open D. And then G. Now we are back to our very opening 4 measures. So before we get there, let's go ahead and play that last section that we learned, and that was measure 32 through measure 38. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we are to the very end. Good job. So these very last 4 measures are very similar to the first 4. In fact, they are pretty much the same, except because we want to end big, instead of just this G, we have a full G chord. That's the only difference. So we have full G chord, and then we just continue as usual. And then we slow down a little bit for the ending. Hold. Last note. So we do slow down. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of up to you. You can decide how much you want to slow down. If you want to slow down, I think it's really nice if it has a nice slow end and you really take your time, you really milk that, end it, hold out that last note, and then, you know, the end of the arrangement has come. But that is the whole entire arrangement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the whole thing with an up close view of my left hand, and hopefully you can follow along and even play along with me. 3, 4. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful. It's always great to meet fellow octave mandolin players, and I hope that this arrangement can just be something fun that you can learn. And let me know in the comments if there are any other arrangements that you would like to see on the octave mandolin, and I will see you in my next video.